Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back, everyone. This is our 34th week, I believe, studying the 29th word. Last week we started on the fourth fundamental point. We read the first matter, and we stopped at a subtle elusive matter. So maybe we'll go over the first matter just a little bit, and if you guys have any reflections or questions, now is a good time to ask. I'll just do a little recap for any new faces. The 29th word is about angels, immortality of spirits, and resurrection. And for the past few months, we've been reading the section that's focused on resurrection. So there are a couple different topics or questions, proofs that we're trying to read as it pertains to how we understand resurrection, how we should confirm it, inshallah. So some of the questions that we had asked previously was, is it possible that this world, this universe can be destroyed? Is it possible that it can be recreated? What kind of, or who can do it? Whoever is going to do it, does that being have that sort of power? And how sure are we, how certain that it's actually going to happen? Is it possible, and is it actually going to happen are two different questions, right? So when we think about resurrection, we don't want to approach the topic by saying, of course it's going to happen, it says so in the Quran, because we don't want to just repeat what we're saying, but see and confirm for ourselves, and inshallah bear witness in creation, to creation, so that our hearts find certainty about the resurrection itself. So the first matter here is about the possibility of this world's death. So one thing that, we talked about last week was anything that has a process of perfection, anything that grows or develops has a natural lifespan, we said. So it's the same for human beings, it's the same for trees, flowers, whatever we see in our life, anything that has this sort of trajectory ends up having a natural lifespan and dying, having a time for its natural death. So we said that, similarly, the universe should have that sort of trajectory, and even scientifically, people are, bringing proofs about this. We have I think astronomers, astrophysicists have been studying for some time now that the universe is still expanding, but just as it expands, it's bound to kind of spring back, or it's going to have some sort of heat death or something, right? So this is not just like a claim that we're making that's not based on anything. But also to kind of connect it with the first part of what we've read so far in the 29th word, right? All of these laws, the natural order that we observe in the universe, they all have a meaning, and they also all point to the angelic side of creation. Laws in themselves, as we call them, don't have any power to enforce things. But because we observe a sort of order in creation, we witness that. We can call it a law, but another way to name it could be an angel or an angelic side of what's going on there. And then we looked at some of these verses from the 81st chapter of the Quran, when the sun is rolled up, when the stars tumble, when the mountains are swept away. And we kind of talked about the feeling that this inspires in us when we're reading it. And I think one thing that we really appreciated towards the end of the first matter was here, a day will come when the meanings and mysteries of these verses will become manifest with the permission of the pre-eternal, all-powerful one, and the death agonies of the macroanthropos, which is the world, will begin. It will fill space and make it reverberate with an appalling death rattle and devastating sound. Roaring, it will die. Then, at the divine command, it will return to life once more. Another thing that we can kind of connect to is in the past few weeks, we were looking at the comparisons, and we studied for like almost 2 weeks the comparison or comparison of obedience, the law, the emir of kun fayakun, right? The kun and the obedience aspect of the universe. So here we kind of just see the continuance of that. The universe dies, then at the divine command, it will return to life once more. So I will stop there. If anyone else would like to share anything, please go ahead. And then Dr. Yamina, if you would like to add anything to our first matter study, since we missed you last week, and then we can start reading the next part, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to also pause with the question that we were thinking about with the tree. We were saying how Imam Nursi does use the tree as a to make connections in different ways throughout his what he's inspired with. And so we saw that he used it here as a miniature copy of the universe. And I was just curious. I mean, there's plenty about the tree that occurs to me as to why. I know he uses the tree and then the fruits, which Norbano mentioned that he does use this in somewhere else in his in the words. But I was also curious if there's anything else. I think it occurred twice, right? I only see it once right here on the screen, but I want to say he mentioned it twice. Is that right, Norbano?
We read it a little earlier, if you remember,
Okay.
the idea of the tree of creation, and the human being like the fruit of it. It's some of the imagery that he uses consistently. But I do remember that we were thinking about why here, this sort of the chain-like universe. We were also kind of like, what does he mean by that? So yeah, if anyone else has any questions from last week, now is a good time, and then we can let Dr. Yamina delve into it, inshallah. Okay. Dr. Yamina, if you would like to walk us through the first matter, if we understood it, or if we're missing anything, and then obviously about the living tree, if there's anything we should keep in mind as we keep reading. If you could share with us, that would be nice. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I think it's okay, inshallah. There is one thing about reading something like this. This is like a reflections, we can say tafsir or reflections on the message of the Quran. is that there is no need to want to go very deep at the first reading, because it's something that we're reading and we need to reflect in real life. And then when we come back, then the same word, the same text will reveal itself in a different way, because we have changed now. Our questions changed. So each time it's going to unfold, inshallah. But if we try to get everything in one reading, it's okay, we can do that. But I'm always a little bit wary about going into the direction of intellectualizing and being after, you know, collecting information about this and that, about akhirah, about the resurrection. Whereas it's supposed to be a life changing process, something that's going to unfold within us so that we start interacting with the creation from that perspective, that everything first in the world around us and then within us will make us witness the reality of the resurrection, inshallah. It's like this ayat that he mentions this from the Quran. It's very powerful. But it's something that needs pondering and reflecting, and each time something will open up, inshallah. If the text is actually, Bismillah. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت. And this is from Surah At-Takwir, Surah 81, the first 3 ayat. And the next is إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت وإذا البحار فجرت, which is from Surah Al-Infitar. And it's the next surah, 82, and again the 3 first ayat. Both of them are very powerful and very awe-inspiring. And the fact that he put them here is also so it's on from one aspect, one day will come where we'll see this openly. We may not be here to see it, but it will be realized. At the same time, all these things, for instance, وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ, the mountains are in motion right now, actually. And in motion physically or in many different ways. It depends how we look at it. But in any case, it's something that relates to us, and whether when we, I wouldn't say understand, when we are gifted with or inspired with a little bit of light of guidance from this ayat, it's awe-inspiring and humbling, and reminding us of how this world is not our goal. It's a means, or like we are told in the hadith, it's mazra'a, it's a field for growing things for akhirah. Again, the growing, and the crops and the fruits is mostly for akhirah. And if we don't understand, it means if we are not gifted or inspired with anything, it's still humbling, because it still reminds us that subhanaka la ilma lana. We don't know illa ma 'allamtana, except what you teach us, what you reveal unto us. So it puts us again reminds us again that we need to be open to receive, and the openness comes from the stopping from claiming or imagining, because we don't do it consciously. Unconsciously, it seems like it's a text. I learn all the words, this, that, and I'll get it. But this is not the same thing. This is not a school text. This is about life, and this is teaching us how to, what attitude we need to be in life in order to maximize the guidance, maximize the fulfilling the purpose of our creation, of our being here on earth, of life, which is that humility and being aware that everything is given, just like every breath is being breathed onto us. Anything that is haqq and that I'm enlightened with is here and now a gift. So as I am enlightened with that guidance, I am at the same time at awe and in full gratitude and in state of prostration before my Rab. And so this attitude is going to change how I interact with the world, how I see the world. Otherwise, normally, when we are not going through this living, conscious journey, this transformation, this receiving of the guidance, this needing, being consciously aware of our need for divine guidance, then it seems like things are going on. I understand. I'm now reading about Akhirah. I'll figure it out, and things like that. And that is really a sad way of living life, because there is much, much richer. That's a very flat way of living life, very unproductive, unfruitful way of living. And that's why we are listening to this guidance from our Rab, who is teaching us how to live, how to be in the world, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Amina. I think that's a good reminder for us to have a working relationship with the text as well. So whatever we read here on Tuesday, it can be something that you revisit during the week on your own time, because the second time, the third time you come to it, you'll be a changed person. You'll be a different version of yourself. So inshallah, you'll have a different benefit each time. Go ahead, Sarah.
And I just want to again pause with what Dr. Yamina said, because it's completely different to the way we've been taught to study the Quran, the religion of Islam, this way of life. It's completely, what she just said now is completely different than, I would say, 95%, if not more, than all of the different ways that I've heard others teach Quranic verses and about the Day of Judgment or, resurrection. When the Quran, from what I understood from Dr. Yamina now, offers these ayat, Surah Takwir, so Surah 81, and the one after, Surah Al-Fitar, for example, we were pondering these specific ayat. The entire surah is extremely profound in this context and very short, actually, but very, very deep, that when we looked at it last week. And I just love the reminder this is not intellectually understanding, right? Everyone can teach you that one day we're going to die and then we resurrected. But Dr. Yamina is not saying that at all. We're saying this is absolutely not an intellectual activity. We're meeting weekly to ponder through Imam Nursi's experience of unveiling and discovering this hidden reality, this secret of existence, this beautiful, intimate way of interacting with the Rawhani, this unseen ruh, spiritual side of the reality of matter. Which is so deep, even to put in words. I mean, this is what the entire 29th word has been about. But to remember that this is not about, yes, 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 I know. This is going to happen. This is what we were taught. Yes, yes. No, no, no. Dr. Yamina is saying it's very sad to look at these ayats and saying, yes, 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 I know. This is talking about when that day this is going to happen. Rather, these ayat and Imam Nursi's experience with these words that he's sharing are his experience with unveiling the universe, the unveiling of the universe unto him, and now he's putting it into words to guide the reader to go through their unveiling process through pondering the physical matter and through pondering their feelings. And the gift, Dr. Yamina says, comes with, and I really needed that reminder about patience, because I'm like, okay, what do you mean by this? Okay, what do you mean by this? And what exactly do you want us to get from this? And that's all the intellectualizing the secret mystery that's not intellectualizable, if that's a word. So Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina. I think that's a good place to remind ourselves to begin, inshallah, on a new page of pausing, wondering deeply and pondering, because that's not automatic. I think we need to renew our intention, inshallah, to start that way. Bismillah.
Thank you, Sarah. Bismillah, indeed. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A subtle, elusive matter. Just as water freezes to its own detriment, and ice melts to its own detriment, and the kernel gains strength to the detriment of the shell, and the word becomes coarse to the detriment of the meaning, and the spirit weakens on account of the body, and the body becomes finer on account of the spirit, so too this world, the dense world, becomes transparent and refined with the functioning of the machine of life on account of the hereafter, which is the subtle world. I'll read that last part again. So too, this world, the dense world, becomes transparent and refined with the functioning of the machine of life on account of the hereafter, which is the subtle world. Creative power, sprinkling the light of life on dense, lifeless, extinguished, dead objects with an astonishing activity, is a sign that it dissolves, burns, and illuminates this dense world with the light of life on account of the subtle world. No matter how weak reality is, it does not die. It is not annihilated like a form. Rather, it travels in individuals and forms. Reality grows, develops, and gradually expands, while the shell and the form wear out, become finer, and break up. They are renewed in a better form so as to become suitable to the stature of the stable and expanded reality. In regard to increase and decrease, reality and form are in inverse proportion. That is to say, the more substantial form grows, the weaker reality becomes. The less substantial form becomes, to that degree, the reality grows stronger. Thus, this law encompasses all things included in the law of the process of perfection. This means that a time is certain to come when the manifest world, which is the shell and form of the mighty reality of the universe, will break up with the permission of the all-glorious Creator. Then it will be renewed in a better form. The meaning will be realized of the verse, "That day the earth will be changed into a different earth." In short, the death of the world is possible. Moreover, there can be no doubt that it is possible. Okay. Any initial reactions or questions?
I like the way he starts with things that are easy for us to you know, experience. Water freezes, so then there's a change, detriment, he says. Ice melts again, so there's I like this like inner and outer comparison. So the kernel, the shell, a word, soft versus coarse, and then the meaning inside. And then the spirit to the body. So because of the shell part, the kernel gains strength to the detriment of the shell. And then the word and the meaning, I felt like that brought me closer to understand what he was saying about the spirit weakens on account of the body. So bringing our awareness to the reality of the relationships, the body becomes finer on account of the spirit. So the more, like Dr. Amin is saying, we live from the ruah, the body becomes finer. And I think he kind of elaborates on what that means with this transparency. So the dense world that seems so heavy and we consider it so permanent and we get so caught up in it, and then that weighs us down. And there's this density, there's this really heavy sort of possibility. But when we live from the ruah, then there's a lightness and a transparency and a finer relationship. So I love that kind of, again, it's very hard to put this stuff into words, but he's putting what he's feeling into words. So instead of just seeing like people and I'm interacting with people and then matter and then, you know, kids and food and the news and other relationships and the community and global stuff. Instead, he's saying creative power, sprinkling the light of life on corpses, dense, lifeless things, reminding me that there is a light of power that operates me. So that's if I'm aware of it in me, like Dr. Yamina says, then that's how I'm going to see other things outside of me. If I see myself as the body, then everything else is dense, heavy bodies as well. And it becomes this very horizontal relationship that all of these words and all of these studies with receiving Nur, all of this repetition is to guide us to this inner place of perceiving, which is much more illuminated, and it takes patience and it takes time. I just loved the way he put it. Like the shell and the kernel is so like ABC, and then he ends the paragraph with you're either seeing density, which is not a pleasant way to be in the world because dense is so heavy and it's not illuminated and it's pretty dark. And that's our perception, right? Like that's, if you're like me, that's how most of the stuff in the world seems in my life. Or there's this new offering, right? If we can see creative power, which a couple of weeks ago was the emphasis for the week, is to look outside and just see power, infinite power, infinite power. Infinite power is the only way things are happening. This pen of infinite power, this incredible wisdom of infinite power, this incredible love from infinite power, which is so different. It's so, even just to say it is liberating. And he calls it astonishing activity. I love that. It makes me smile because it's like he was seeing this, rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah, and he's like so inspired to share the beautiful way he saw it so that other people can do the work. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't know anybody who takes the time to teach this sort of mystery of how to arrive at this way of perceiving the world, this spirituality. I think people sometimes assume that you have it and say, okay, now meditate. Okay, now but the how of looking at the world and doing the pondering is a process. And so here we are. And I like the last sentence too. I like that he says it's a sign that it dissolves, burns, which reminds me of like the shell, like letting go of the shell, the physical thing that it looks like, which includes the mulk that we talked about a few weeks ago, right? Like my feeling comes in its shell. The feeling that comes to me comes in a shell. It's like packed in something, and it's my responsibility to pause with it, ponder it so that I can unpack the shell and receive the illuminated inner aspect, which will, if I do, will further then add to, illuminating me. He says in the last sentence of the last paragraph, and illuminates this dense world with the light of life. Yeah, I guess I'll pause there.
Thank you, Sarah. The two things you said stood out to me. One of them was that, the idea of this, a word becomes coarse to the detriment of the meaning. When I reflect on it, I feel like it's such a common experience that I can confirm, every day. where I'm trying to explain something that I experienced or felt or even thought of. And as soon as I try to put it into words, it feels restricted. Something seems to be missing. And then as you were talking about, Imam Nursi writing this down, and obviously, we have talked a little bit about um, the text and needing to study it and stay with it. A lot of times, if you look at, like Sufi writers or something, there comes a point in their texts where they say, if we can put it into words, you know, it's it has already lost some of its meaning. Because, for example, one who feels the unity, the oneness of God, you can't really put it into words. So they say, in their poetry, in their treatises, whatever we're putting into words, it's already restricting, limiting, it's missing from the actual thing we felt, from the actual meaning we grasped, whatever it is. As soon as we try to formulate it into sentences, into words, it's losing some of that. So that's one thing that, okay, I can confirm that this is something I experienced. And obviously these other things I can witness. And so to take this personal experience and then to just widen it to the whole universe, I think that takes some it needs some imagination that, I probably wouldn't have done that sort of reflection myself. So that's the part where I'm really grateful to the text to kind of walk me through that sort of movement. Okay, look at this experience you have, look at what you're witnessing. What does that mean when it comes to what you're talking about, Sarah? How are you going to look at the world? Are you just going to focus on the dense, lifeless, extinguished, dead objects, the forms, the bodies? Or are you going to try to see the subtlety inside them? The melekut, as we've been talking about for weeks now. So that's the journey that we're on, inshallah. If anyone else have any questions, please write in the chat and I will open it up to Dr. Yamina to say anything she wants about this subtle, elusive matter part, inshallah.
I guess I'll just also mention for the second paragraph, I love what he said about the word reality. Like it was just very sobering for me to reflect on. This is my second read though, so I think it's important for everybody to at least do a quick read before the halakha, because the first read I was like, wait, what? And then the second read was Nurbanu, and then the third read is me just looking at it again. And it definitely, what Dr. Yamina says is I'm finding true. It, the more that you sit with something that's you're sort of asking, the more you reread it, you're asking again and again and showing up, as your responsibility. And then inshallah, we're given. So I'm wondering what the Arabic or Nubanu, what the original word for reality is. I don't know if it's hakika or something like that. But it's extremely beautiful in this paragraph. And I guess it's so beautiful to me because this week a friend and I were discussing on like who we really are and how we interact with each other. everybody's like too shy to, oh no, I don't want to pick up, I don't want anyone to see how I look when I'm like this, and you know, so worried about their physical form and how they appear. Not saying that we shouldn't at all, but I think there just needs to be an awareness. And I was mentioning to her, like, I remember a long time ago, a teacher was telling me that it's not people who see you as beautiful, like hearts see you as beautiful, and that's a matter of the hearts. So don't think that there's something that you're going to do to you. It was just something that stuck with me. And so now with this, the reality of who we are is immortal, doesn't die, not annihilated, doesn't grow old, doesn't get wrinkly, which people get so subconscious about, doesn't turn white and gray, doesn't break up and deteriorate. Actually, it grows, develops, expands, is beautified, is more illuminated, um, renewed, I mean, subhanallah, like I think especially in this culture, there's such a dislike of growing old. Oh my God, like the amount of stuff that people capitalize on that, for women especially, like God forbid you get wrinkly. Like, oh no, buy this new anti-wrinkle cream, do this new mask, change this. Yeah, with and not nobody's saying don't invest. We're made to love beauty and we're made to desire youthfulness. That's how we're made. Yeah. And that's not, yani, we're dwelling in these little shells. So not who we are. And if all we're preoccupied with, or mostly preoccupied with, is what the shell is doing, then we've completely lost sight of who we are. So that was just the more substantial form grows, the weaker reality becomes, the less substantial form becomes. I like that last sentence. The less substantial form becomes, to that degree, the reality grows stronger. It's just and last week we were talking about having the separation between what's physically happening and the meaning. And so Dr. Yamina, what came to me at the very end is, like, as a homework, which I always only practice like right after Halakha, Wednesday and Thursday. So we definitely need to start like a buddy system to keep each other more accountable. But when something happens that would previously frustrate me or get me angry or reactive, this week's homework for us, we were saying, like, just for a moment, smile. And instantaneously, because you use that, right? Dr. Mina told us that in the past, like it immediately changes everything when you physically do that, reminding your spirit there is meaning here. This is transient. This physical thing that just happened is not the reality. There's something inside that's stirring. That's the reality. So the smile, just one smile, gives that enough space to, yani, at least do the la ilaha part. Like, okay, stop tripping up about the physical thing. Like, just stop. There's something beautiful happening inside. Let's go there. And the smile just kind of helped me, at least for 3 days. Before then I forgot. Stuff for love, but yeah, I'm gonna pause there.
Something you said, Sarah, too. We keep ping-ponging, but in a different halakha, we were reflecting about this, how we feel in spaces where substance is primary and form is primary. That feeling also gives me a message. So I think, when you find yourself in a place where how you look, what you wear, what your car is like, what your house is like, where you go to school, those things, the form things, the dense things, are what people are looking at. The ruh, the soul, senses that and feels very constricted. So we feel very, at least for me, I feel very like I need to get out of here because it feels so stuffy, like suffocating. But when I am at a retreat, when I'm at a halakha, when I'm sharing a reflection with a friend, or when I'm just in a place where those things don't hold so much importance, my ruh feels like that expansion. Um, you know, here, the development, the growth, and it doesn't feel constricted. So even that feeling is a message for me, I think, to say that in this place, you feel at peace because this is where you're meant to be. And in the other place, you feel like constantly you need to do things, like you said, the anti-wrinkle cream or this or that. There's always, and a few weeks ago, we were talking about what is our real career. Um, when you have certainty, or when you feel more confident in where you're headed and what you need to focus on, those things don't bother you anymore. And I think that's a sign, that's a message, ayah, that, okay, this is the path that I'm supposed to be on. Because the way people look at me, the way I look at people, doesn't make me feel like I don't want to be here. And it comes to the other thing you're saying, where even when I face something challenging, I can turn inwards and I can say, there is something underneath the shell. I need to crack it. I need to open it. I need to look inside. And that's just like such a mental, it's just like a totally different landscape, like mental landscape to be in, versus always being worried what people are gonna think, how I'm gonna think, how I feel physically, always like anchoring myself to the physical world, just makes it hard for my ruh. That's how I feel anyway.
Sure, for sure.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, for sure. I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Amina, before we move on to the second matter?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
You can see from the beginning when he says a word becomes coarse to the detriment of meaning, and then the spirit weakens on account of the body. So if you remember at the beginning when we were reading about the existence of angels, that pertains to the Malakut side of the creation. The first layer is the meaning. There is meaning in everything. And that's how we were led be beyond meaning, that there is something else. And so when we start becoming aware that there is meaning and more than meaning, or a meaning that eventually pertains to the beautiful names, and eventually the beautiful names belong to one only, then the spirit, the ruh, will start growing, because the ruh sees meaning and feeds on meaning and grows with meaning, and the reality behind that meaning. And when we don't, then we are stuck into the dense physical world. Even so, all the examples that you gave is it's actually a good point, because it shows how all this is directly relevant to how we live life here and now. Because it seems like, okay, so what if I miss the malakut? What if I'm not aware of the angels in my life day in, day out? Well, it means that I am not living from the ruh. It means that I'm identifying with worldly things. And those worldly things, they don't have to always be like the body itself, but as well, how the body looks, who I am, or my career, and all these things will have, because we don't know who we are and we don't have meaning, true meaning and true identity to anchor us, to give us lasting meaning and purpose. And because we are creatures of purpose, we cannot live without meaning and purpose. What we do is we compensate. We try to hold on things that will give us a sense, but that sense is a fake, false sense. A sense of identity, a sense of purpose. And so we identify with looks, with, as you said, with your car, your class in society, your where you were born, with your family, or with your career, or all these things. Those things are all there anyways. Everyone is going to be born in one thing or the other. It's like before it was, we live in a world of opposites, and everything is relative. There is high and what's the opposite of high? Down, or long and short. There is rich and poor. All these things exist. But if we make them, we identify with them when they are relative and passing, then it becomes like it's not only we miss our real purpose in life, the only thing that brings us true fulfillment, that we are, some people may be like working very hard towards finding fulfillment, but actually everyone is created with the craving and the longing for that true fulfillment, that peace and joy. So we miss on that, and we become entangled with this fake identities, and we suffer a lot from it, because however low or high, because we can always compare, because it's a world of relative world. You can always find someone better, and then you feel like a failure, you feel like this, and then you go and to therapy. They tell you you are not a failure, you are good. And it's that's why this guidance is so important. It's at all levels, even or especially maybe at the inner personal level, in our feelings, that chaotic and dark inner world will find balance and become light without even doing lots of work, when we focus on following the guidance and start identifying with who we truly are. So yes, this is related directly to Malaika and Ruh, and of course the resurrection, because everything is transient. And if we are stuck in the transient and dense, and we miss the true meaning that looks beyond, that's what Ayah is all about, always pointing beyond. If we stop looking beyond, then we become prisoners not only of our feelings, but our self-made idols, all those false beliefs about who we are. And we cannot let go of them. If you say, even if you explain to me, to someone, that this doesn't make sense, we still, intellectually we understand it, but emotionally we still hold on very tightly on those identities, because without them, we will feel like we have nothing to hold on. We have nothing to ground us. So it's the message of the Quran is really, it's not only enlightening, it's liberating, it's empowering, it brings the best in humanity, and otherwise we'll be stuck in those, it's like a net of all kinds of things that are part of our life, but they are not who we are. And yet we pathetically want to identify. How can you identify with your career? Your career is what you do. And we can easily check when we look at people, what do we see? Do we see what's inside, or are we stuck in the outer, in the looks, in the clothing, in all these things, or who that person is saying they are? Because how we look at things is how we look at ourselves. And we know that that's not what that person is. Yet we imprison them, we put them in a cage like that. And we also do it to ourselves, and we miss the ruh is like much greater than anything physical. Astaghfirullah. That's why he's saying they are the reality, which is haqiqah, and form, surah. He's saying they are inversely, where was it? That they are in inverse proportion. The more we focus on reality, the more the form doesn't have a grip on us. It doesn't mean that you are not eating, or you are not breathing, or you are not doing something, whether you call it career or this or that. Everyone is doing something all the time. But identifying with it and not only identifying, but giving power to it over ourselves, and giving it like value, as if it's a source of value, becomes a real problem. Because there is a confusion there. For instance, if someone is a healer, I don't want to say doctor, because medicine is becoming more and more. Doctors are not taught even what they were taught 100 years ago, because they want them to be more and more dependent on technology, on a hospital. If you take a doctor out of the hospital, before a doctor would take a small case and could help quite much. Now it needs tests and machines and technology and everything. So they teach them less and less and less. So that's why I don't want to use the word, but as a healer, the healing is something we value. And we respect the healer, because the healer is a mirror reflecting, a channel to that. Seeing it that way is different than the person himself becomes higher or lower than someone else. Or for some people, it could be the money. Because you have less or more money, you become more and less or something. But when you start seeing things as, like he says, the divine, the creative power sprinkling the light of life on dense, lifeless, extinguished, dead object with an astonishing activity is a sign that you can take it, and for all the names of God, you can find that, yes, all those things won't be like mini sources, and we really desperately want to hold on to them, but they become like things that we reflect on, and we see them as channels and mirrors reflecting the beautiful names of God. It's very different perception, very different worldview, very different ways of being in the world. One is a beautiful way of being in the world. Everything reminds us of God, of the beautiful names, of Jannah, of Akhirah. And the other one is dense, dark. From time to time we remember, but most of the time it's like we're in a tunnel. We don't know what's going on. It's really a difficult way of living life. We make it difficult ourselves, though. So that shell, we also need to let the shell off, the shell of our own misbeliefs and false beliefs and misperceptions and illusion, and let the light of the reality come through, inshallah. And for this, it's not only a matter of realizing and understanding, it's also a choice, a choice, a choice. We need to make the decision to choose. And each time, even if the choice we make is a tiny little change, one little thing we do differently, we are different, we choose to be different and start seeing differently and doing things differently. And slowly, slowly, the istiqamah is realigned, and lots of things start changing in our life, inshallah.
Inshallah. One of the things that we keep coming back to is also this idea that we need to be active participants in our own lives. We're not just letting things happen to us, but we are making decisions, choices that can put us towards the right path, inshallah. At least we need to intend and do everything we can in that regard. Because one of the other things that we talk about a lot is surrender and submission, but we don't want to misunderstand that as being passive. So every moment we're making decisions. Yeah, Dr. Amina, I was going to say maybe we can stop at 8:40 and potentially discuss before we start the second matter if we want to change the time going forward, since we're now in Maghrib time. So I will just give a few more minutes for anyone to share any last minute reflections. Then I will stop the recording and then we can do a short discussion on the time. Okay?
Thank you, Nurbanu, and thank you, Dr. Yamina. I just wanted to recap what really stuck to me. It's such a beautiful formula. So we talked about this illuminated reality of who we are, and the illuminated reality of all things that we can only access when we are feeding. Dr. Yamina said that. I love that. The ruh, and the ruh feeds on meaning and grows with meaning, which is the malakut side, which is what we studied about the angels in the past several sessions, when we first started the 29th word earlier on. So either we are moment to moment interacting with the meaning, and I think I can put this on a post-it and start putting it in separate rooms. Either we are feeding, growing with meaning, either we're focusing on the meaning, or we're feeding the body and getting more and more stuck into the dense physical plane. There's no other, it's black and white. It's so easy. And I love black and white and I love easy. Alhamdulillah, that's how we're made. So it's so easy. Either you are interacting with the meaning side, or you're in the dense physical plane. There's no in between. There's no gray. It's really dark or illuminated. It's so easy. So, and the way to access the meaning is to pause and see the most beautiful divine names being disclosed and be in a state of tasbih. So we said that the malakuts, the angelic side, is constantly revealing to me the names of God, which I can only access when I pause and ponder what I'm feeling, what is happening, what's the message in all of this. So nobody I know teaches it. So here we are. Yani, how many years into the halakha game, Nurbanu and I still struggling, and grateful because, if you've lived for X amount of decades without this teaching, then we have to give ourselves that patience and grace, that it's going to take time to get it, inshallah. But we have to, again, make these little choices, and inshallah, we can talk in the bigger group about how to have a buddy system to keep ourselves more accountable during the week. I know I need it. And then, yeah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much, Dr. Yamina. And thank you so much, Nurbanu. I know, Dr. Yamina, were you going to speak? If not, Nurbanu, then yes, inshallah, we can close and then talk about the time and then all be released to glorify, be co-glorifiers, inshallah.
inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة على رسولنا صلوات